Yeah, and we started this webinar series focusing on Rio Grande last week. So today we're doing session number 2. So Dr. Sanchez is going to be the moderator for today. So Rosario, please take it from here. If you could introduce yourself to the audience, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mekonnen. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today. We're also very excited to join forces between the Permanent Forum of Binational Waters and UCLA on this webinar series that just finished a very successful one on the Rio Colorado, and now together we're starting one on the Rio Grande. So we hope to see you all on this 6th coming, well, starting today with Sam Sandoval and all the way through the end of the month. So with that, I'm going to be moderating the session. If you have questions, please make sure you put them on the chat or the question or the Q&A box, and we will follow with those questions at the very end of the presentation of Dr. Sandoval. And if you have any comments, please put them on the Q&A as well. Thank you, and looking forward to see you and all the rest of the month. Mekonnen, if you don't mind presenting our speaker today.
Yes. So thank you so much, Dr. Sanchez. So let's see. So I think now we have to go straight to our presentation for today. And our speaker for today is Professor Sam Sandoval. Rosario, would you like to go ahead and introduce him, or do you want me to go ahead?
I will leave that to you to introduce Sam. But before we start, I would like to say something just for the sake of the audience on the Rio Grande and its differences and similitudes with the Rio Colorado. They suffer from the same issues as we all know, but they are indeed different. And it is important to acknowledge that, because they are not just different in terms of how things and issues are being addressed, but also the history behind it. And that plays a role at the end of the day. The Rio Colorado has 50 years of cooperation, documented cooperation. Good or bad, the cooperation exists, the agreements are in place, drought continues, and it will just dire the basin as we see it today, and we will see more challenges coming in the future. On the Rio Grande, the condition is not very different. However, I guess the advantages or disadvantages that we have are different. So we don't have those 50 years of cooperation that we can go back. We're just starting that route right now. And the time is ticking on the Rio Grande. We need much more. We need to work on lessons learned from the Colorado. There are good things that we can learn from, as part of the Rio Grande, and also things that we need to acknowledge too. On that end, the basin, most of the basin is in the U.S. side. On the Rio Grande, most of the basin is in Mexico side. So things change, and actors and stakeholders change too. So it's important to have that context, because it's not just the physics and the water issues and conditions. It's the history, it's the social conditions, it's the economics, and it's the politics that also play an important role here. Anyway, with that, if you don't mind, Mekonnen, to introduce Dr. Sandoval, that'll be great.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
No. Go ahead, you.
You want me to go ahead? Okay, good.
Yes. I'll be biased, because I'll be biased. I mean, I see him every day.
Excellent. And I mean, he's, Professor Sandoval's bio is really long. He has achieved, numerous awards, etc. But just quickly, I'd like to say that he is a professor at University of California, Davis, and also a cooperative extension specialist in water resource management at the Division of Agriculture and Natural Resource at the University of California. In his dual role as a professor and specialist, he's responsible for the California statewide outreach, education, and applied research program on water resources management. And also as a professor, he's responsible for research, teaching, and graduate student mentorship at the Department of Land, Air, and Water Resources in UC Davis. His research interests focus on integrated water resource management through a holistic approach, mixing different methods, tools, and processes to improve water resource management. As far as his educational background, he got his bachelor's degree in civil engineering in 2002, a master's in hydraulic in 2005, and a PhD in environmental and water resource engineering from University of Texas at Austin in 2011. And he has been working on Rio Grande Basin since some 2004-ish. Yeah. So with that introduction, Professor Sandoval, please take it from here. Thank you.
Okay, now you can hear me, right?
Yes.
So, and also you can see the screen, I hope so. So today, I decided to do something quite adventurous. And the adventure thing is that I want to share with you a lot of the work that I've been doing with many different people since actually 2004. I see some of the people that actually I have worked with that are joining us as attendees. Jesus, Luzma, good seeing you here. Anyways, what I want to share with you is kind of the work that I have been doing here. One part is going to be a tiny bit bumpy, and it's going to be bumpy because I will start presenting a lot of the things that I did in the past. At some point, I will stop and I will share with you what are the things that I'm currently excited to work with, and well, let's get going. So I think in our case, something that we have worked together is towards not only doing research in the Rio Grande, but also providing a vision. I will share with you the team, how many people we have worked on this one, at least close there. And please forgive me if I'm missing someone. I'm pretty sure I am doing it. A lot of the research, a lot of that has been completed. Then I'm going to step and talk about the environmental flows. And then what is research ongoing? So, because I'm going to be presenting a lot of the research, so I will leave on the chat. And let me see if this one works. Oh, this is only for the panelists. So I will leave on the chat all the different citations that I have for the research that I've been doing here. Also at the end, you will be able to see, it's not allowing. You will be able to see all the different manuscripts that I'm talking about. So basically, it's a compilation of all the work doing here. So let's get going. So in terms of our vision for the Rio Grande, it is a thriving and sustainable economic, social, environmental, and cultural basin. So we want to have a basin that is like that, a basin managed for solving current and future challenges. Give me a second. The presentation decided not to. Okay. This is typically what happens here. Okay. Let me. Huh. It's always a good part for doing this live. Oh, here we go. And this one. Just give me a couple of seconds. There you go. Ta-da. Mhm. Okay. And here it comes, here it comes. Give me a second. I think the computer is as anxious or nervous as I am. It is actually quite interesting to kind of do a lot of these, present a lot of this work all at once. So going back to this, basically what we want to have is a basin that is managed for current and future challenges using adaptive approach based on innovative, inclusive, transparent, and equitable governance. And each of these words has a given meaning. We not only has equitable access to governance, but also that is inclusive, that is representative, transparent, that it's that you that can be accountability. I think it is important to have accountability, innovative, that fosters changes, that adapts. A basin that is integrated hydrologically, we know that is also socioeconomically integrated, but also that it values the cultural system within it. Where research, innovation, and knowledge is communicated to the society during the decision-making process. So the work that we have done is towards doing research that actually can inform decisions. So here is some of the team. This is not the entire team. Luz, I'm missing here your picture. Also, perhaps Linda, others, and definitely kind of seeing there that Enrique, you also should be there. So basically, this is something that I am all the people that I have worked with. So let's get to the to the part of the work. So this is myself, and this might be 2004, and I did my research on the San Juan Basin. So estimating the water availability in the San Juan Basin. I'm surprised at that moment, that was 2004, there was no surface water available in the San Juan Basin. So basically did a mass balance of how much water was used, how much water was naturally available. That's something that I found there. Later with Danny, basically what we did is recreate this model on the San Juan Basin using Riverware for simulating water use, water demand. At that moment, we forecasted that there will be a water shortage in the San Juan Basin by 2022, 2023. And this is not because we have a crystal ball. It was basically because when running the model for 3 or 5 years, consecutive dry years, as it happened, and there were expected some water shortages. And let me see if I can, okay, let me see if I can actually, having here some of those, I really want to see if there is a way to, it's not allowing me. Every time that you're seeing here a number is because there is a paper, a document behind it. At the end, I will send you all the links to that. So let's go to the next one. Then, of course, it was 2011. That was my dissertation. And I built a model, basically a water allocation model from half New Mexico all the way to the Gulf, considering New Mexico and Texas, 5 states in Mexico, 25 reservoirs, more than 40 aquifers. We're talking about about 4,400 water rights on the Mexican side, about 2,000 water rights on the US side. I think that's where some of the white hairs start growing. And basically, that's how I get to know the model. Why this is interesting, because not the model allow me to start looking for alternative water resources management. So that's how I know the system, because I actually develop all the details, develop this sustainability index, and here are a lot of the papers. Then associated with this, so one of the strategies that we tested at that time, it was a groundwater, a conjunctive use of surface water and groundwater. So here in the Meoki Delicias Aquifer, we tested an in-view groundwater banking. So what happens when you have a lot of surface water available? Do not use groundwater and only supply water from surface water. And if there is not that much surface water, use surface water and groundwater to meet water demands. The results at that moment were that currently the aquifer is this black line, and it's used. Sometimes it is increasing, sometimes it's decreasing. But this dotted line, basically what it shows is that there are times when the line goes up, when actually you don't need to use groundwater. All the water can be used from surface water. There are also drought periods here and in here that actually you will need to use both surface water and groundwater. What this tells you is that we can do an improved groundwater, surface water, and groundwater management in terms of joint operations. This paper won an award. That was 2010, 2011. The same, we were able to estimate with the sustainability index what was the performance in different parts of the basins. We got a list of different scenarios that can improve the water resources management. And basically that has been a good guidelines for me to understand what are the capabilities of strategies from conjunctive use, environmental flows, reduction in water demand, increasing irrigation efficiencies, modifying reservoirs operations. A lot of that comes from this part. This paper won an award, and that was actually nice. I wrote this paper with the advisor of my advisor, so with Pete Louds, Dane McKinney, and myself. This is a fun one. Later, it will come a risk analysis of the compliance of the treaty. And basically, water has to be delivered from these 6 tributaries, 1/3 to 2/3, and that amount of water has to be of a certain amount. So basically, when during 1940, 1944, when people were kind of identifying what will be the performance of Mexico delivering water to the US based on these rules, something that they come up is that 42% of the time Mexico will be able to meet this amount of water. So actually a small amount, if you think of it, think that you're renting a house and only 42% of the time the person that you're renting it will pay you the rent. So it's actually quite a small amount, but typically in the following month they'll pay you in a full. So 80% of the time it will be paid full, and the amount that these people is going to owe you, or what it will not be able to make it up for the rent, is 9%. So it wasn't that reliable, but when it failed, it bounced back, and the deficit was small. And this is how the treaty was designed to be worked. Historically, it has been more reliable. So it has been more time that the water is able to deliver, that Mexico is able to deliver water to the US, 63% of the time. However, the resilience is very small. When it fails, it really fails. It takes a lot of time actually to make it work again. Actually, to make it work in these conditions, because basically these folks thought that because of the hurricanes, because of all the water will be delivered. Here, we actually, in the last 2 or 3 cycles, we have, well, the Mexican authorities need to deliver water explicitly. So the resilience has decreased. If it is not by human decisions, the system is failing. is not recovering that fast. And the amount that is owed to the US, it used to be only 9%, now it's 26%. 26% is a year and a tiny bit more. So 1 year of not delivering water to the US. So this is what I found at this point on some of these studies that we did. Another thing that we found is that all the 3D cycles that are less than 5 years, they always close between the year 1 and the year 4, but never between the year 4 and 5. And that is because the basin has a lot of memory. It basically, when it's dry, it stays dry. The next one is a study that I did with Linda. And basically, we start thinking of what happened if all of us work together, or what happened if some people work independently. What we did is a game theory analysis. So basically, we use players, the Rio Conchos players, the Rio Salado players, the Rio San Juan players, the Bajo Rio Bravo players, and the lower Rio Grande players. So when people in here, in the Conchos, they want to only play by themselves and do everything to their benefit, they can receive an important allocation. But the other users, so the Bajo Rio San Juan and the Rio Salado, they will not receive any water. If the Rio Salado decides to play only by itself and don't share any water, they will receive an important amount of water, but also the Bajo Rio Grande, but not the Rio Conchos, because it has to meet these water obligations. When the three of them play together, actually, these guys receive an important amount of water, the people in the Rio Conchos, the people in the Rio Salado will receive an amount, and here the people in the Bajo Rio Bravo. This yellow line is the water supply for the Bajo Rio San Juan. These folks, according to the treaty, they don't have the obligation to start delivering water at all times. But when some of the users place individually, they actually have a lower allocation. Why is that? Because someone has to pick up the weight. It's not, water cannot be invented. So if people from here or from here, they're not delivering water, then people from the basin of San Juan, they have to deliver water. So this basically shows that when the Rio Conchos and the Rio Salado, when they are playing and trying to keep all the water for themselves, the water allocation for the San Juan River decreases. And when everyone plays together, the water of the San Juan increases, and also for the users in Texas. So cooperation works, right? I mean, it really works in this basin, and this also shows how dependent is U.S. water allocation on Mexico's management and vice versa. An uncomfortable truth that Mexicans users depend on water decisions in the U.S. and U.S. users depend on water decisions in Mexico. Anyway, this was fun. I'll put in there some of the links for the literature. This is a paper done with Luzma that is here. Here we evaluate the governance in the Rio Grande. Basically, we found out that it's a perfectly fragmented system, not only hydrologically, but also in terms of institutions. It's a polycentric, so it has different centers of management throughout the basin. Depending on where you are, is where is the different locations of the agencies. And something that you can see here is that, well, basically, some of the agencies might be above Fort Whitman or below. And they is a governmental institution. They do some planning, some allocations, but not regulation. And vice versa. You can see that a lot of the institutions, they have a certain role and they have certain responsibilities. And you can see that all of them, they have different roles and different responsibilities. And this is what makes the basin really fragmented. Everyone is just looking for their own responsibility, while the others are doing something different. Then we go into the Big Bend. So here in the Big Bend, we evaluated the strategies to deliver water from a reservoir here that is called Luis L. Leon. So here, Luis L. Leon can deliver water, and water can be catch here in Amistad. So it is a catch and release policy. Pass water that it has to be passed, or it has to be passed, and deliver it in a way that can be environmentally beneficial. I call it a dam problem and a dam solution. So basically, we can release water from a dam and catch it on the other one. What this shows, so this is not only hydrologically possible. So there is enough water to deliver water for irrigation districts here, and to do not affect downstream users, but you can improve the benefits, you can improve the environment, the timing, you can improve the habitat, you can improve the freshwater species in the Big Bend without affecting others. This is a scientific truth. It's not only hydrologically feasible, it's also economically viable. At this moment, the amount of, so this is how much is profiting the agriculture in here, $6.4 million. In terms of the environmental cost, the amount of dollars that we're putting there to sustain the environment is about $11 million per year. So we're obtaining $6 million for agriculture, but us as a society, we're paying in environmental restoration $11 million per year. It doesn't make any sense, like really, it doesn't make any sense. So there are ways that actually we can go from black numbers, from red numbers, as it currently is the policies, to black numbers, to good numbers where we can actually have an economic benefit. Then later we develop here the water atlas. So we have a database where we have compiled all the different models that can be used for restoring the environment. Hydrologic, planning, habitat models for geodatabases for the Rio Grande. So there is already a database, you don't have to look for it. There is already a database when you can go and look up what are the models that can help, that can be used to for environmental purposes, to test environmental flows in there. And here it comes Jesus, and we decided to, if we were not doing enough, now we start working on water footprint. And basically what we estimated is not only the crops that use a lot of water, so the drop per crop, so how much water is used per kilogram of produce, of biomass, but also what are the crops that are consuming the most water in the basin. Somewhere here is alfalfa, somewhere here is sorghum, somewhere here is corn. But what you can see is that those are the ones that are actually using the most water. And this is at that moment in time in 2018. Jesus and others later will help out to work on an important data set to estimate natural and regulated flows for 110 years. I really would love to. Let me see if I can. I will start doing something like this. Let me see. So I know that this will look tiny bit funny, but basically all these numbers that you're seeing here is this thesis of Jesus. And I will make sure to send you all these different list of, this is massive. This is all the um, publications that we have done. Also, that one there. So I'll see how much I can keep with putting some of these papers there. Then this is Grace, Grace Gomez Quiroga, and basically with Grace, what we estimated was floods. The summary of what we found is that, for instance, some of the magnitude of the floods that used to happen every 10 years naturally in different locations, in all these different locations, they have about this height, and we tested in this 110-year period. The current floods, they are at least one order of magnitude down. This is a logarithmic scale. So what I'm trying to tell you is that the natural flows, so this is kind of like surprise, right? Natural flows were way higher of how much they are. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 times less magnitude, a half or a third of what they used to be. Here in Ansalduas, you can see that what we used to have is now, we don't have any. The other one, when floods occur, and floods occur, and so this is the Rio Conchos, it will be naturally during these dates, but now it's a little bit more spread out. And the same as you're moving from Villa Ojinaga, Johnson Ranch, the timing starts spreading out. And why is that? Because sometimes it's for flood control releases. So that will be, let me see if I can do that here. Sorry, I will try to do a lot of these things. Well, then it comes, now this is a Lau. This is a Laura Garza and everyone. So with that database of 110 years, we analyze first the natural flows, and we used an index that is called the stream flow drought index, which basically you put all the flows in, you feed all the flows in a bell curve. So we converted it, and we used the natural flows. Some of them, they were very wet, like what you're seeing here. And some of the natural flows were really dry. So what you can see here is that the basin used to go from, and this is in San Marcial, this is here, from a really dry to a somehow wet to dry, semi-wet, dry, very wet, and dry. So the basin used to have these swings of being in a dry period, in a wet period, and so on. And this can be the same for instance, this is the Rio Conchos Arojinaga, this is the Pecos River. These are all the different tributaries, and this is along the main stem. Something that we found is that if we compare how are the current flows and see how these flows, the current flows are compared to the natural flows, they look really dry. They actually look extremely dry. Something that we find out is that all these flows here, the basin have been in a permanent drought since the early 1900s. Even better, we realized that the basin has been in a human-induced drought. This is an anthropogenic mega drought that we have put the river for 100 years. This is amazing. This is one of those things that we finish here. And then we went to Cuatro Ciénegas. So here we are in Cuatro Ciénegas, and basically what we did there is we did a socio-environmental diagnostic. We went with students from the Tecnológico de Monterrey, and we did some interviews to identify how they can live better. What are the practices that they can do to still be economically viable, so still do farming, while at the same time protecting all the different pozas, all the different swimming holes or oases that are in this area of the basin. Then we went back to environmental flows, and this was a rapid assessment with our friends from Natura. we estimated environmental flows in different locations, doing a rapid assessment of a percent of natural flow. And that was to provide this to the Basin Council. Whew. I know it's been quite a lot. Later, we decided to write a paper about environmental flows in the Rio Grande. This was an amazing collaboration, through multidisciplinary, through transdisciplinary research with people from different universities that got together around the South Central Climate Adaptation Center. Basically, what we found in there is that all these dots that you're seeing here and all these different basins in color, these are locations where at that moment in time, this is 2021, we already have prescribed environmental flows, or a form or a flow that can be beneficial for the environment. So it's not that environmental flows have not been developed. They have been. Even better, we also provide case of studies, or we provide examples where environmental flows are actually being implemented in one way or another, through policies, through temporal agreements, through lending or giving water to the environment. So basically, these are all the different locations, all the different cases where environmental flows are one way or another starting to develop. And then we analyze what were the key aspects for implementing environmental flows. One of those is basically it is a cooperation, collaboration with others. Again, some of my co-authors are here. So at this moment, I'm gonna switch gears. So you have heard me talk about quite a lot about environmental flows. And this is the part that I'm transitioning from what I've done in the past, or what we have done. It's not myself, it's a group. What we have done in the past to what we're working now, what are our accomplishments, and then what we're thinking in the future. So let me try to pitch you an idea. Okay, so we know, where am I? It decided to work again, just right on the good portion of it. So it will take some time, but while this comes back, think of this. What if we know, so the river has been altered forever. Since we have records, we have alteration in the river. So there is no way around. But what if in some early portions of that alteration, the river was altered, but it was still working? What if the river, let's say in the early 1920s or 1940s, the river just was altered, but it was within the bounds of the natural flow regime. It was still providing functionality, environmental functionality, as the it came back. As the sorry, just lose you guys. There you go. Here I am. But I think we're here. Sorry. We'll see if this still works. Yeah. So what if we can find that time when actually the river was altered, but it was working. So we have the natural flows, and we know that we cannot go back there. We have regulated flows, and we know that they are not providing benefits for the environment. Or if we can find a period in the past that it was, yes, it was altered, but it was providing functionality. And this is extremely important because we are calling that period a resilient period. So we have a natural flow regime, a regulated flow regime, but we may have a resilient flow regime. A flow regime that, yes, it is altered, yes, it has human use, but yes, it is providing benefits for the environment. So that was kind of the idea. It was a very, very, very long shot, and we're still working towards that very long shot. But we were able to estimate those periods and actually to find this resilient period. Now, why is important the resilient period? Basically, think of it as estimating the carrying capacity, estimating how much water. Well, we can estimate how much water we need in the river to actually keep it healthy. The difference between the regulated flow and this resilient flow, so where we are and where we know the river was still working environmentally, that difference, that gap, is an environmental gap. We might be able, no, actually we may not, we are gonna be able. We are calculating how much water will be needed to provide environmental flows. What is the gap between the water that we have right now and the water that we need to provide a healthy environment? This is amazing. I'm not sure if you're excited, but that will be amazing. Once we know that, I think it is important to have in all these concepts because we might be able to actually estimate how much water is needed for the environment. On the other way, the flip side of the coin, the difference between the natural flow regime, so this natural flow, and the resilient flow, the flow that has human alteration, but the environment is working, is called the carrying capacity. We can estimate how much water can be taken from the rivers without actually changing the natural flow regime, changing the functions for it. So I think actually this was a nice break. In order to share with you this. So I'm sorry, this is being eventful. Yesterday when I was thinking about this, to be sincere, this is the first time that we are presenting this. I am seeing also on the audience Enrique Prunes from WWF. So this is work that we're doing with Enrique. So this is the natural flows. We can estimate functional flows, so flows that are functional, that provide benefits to the environment. This is what I was telling you. What if we can find a period in time where this black line is the regulated flow? So when the black line is between the natural bounds, between these blue lines, the blue line and the blue area is the variability of the natural flow regime. So what if we can find this regulated flow when actually it was close to the natural, it was within the bounds of the natural flow regime. After this year, it actually went out of these bounds. This is resilient theory, and this is Laura Garza working on this. And then finding this resilient flow. So a flow that, yeah, it is less, but it can still provide ecological functionality. So these are natural flows in the upper basin. You know it is a snowmelt river. These are the regulated flows. This is how it looks right now. This is, again, the natural flows, and this is in the southern branch. And actually, this is also super cool. First time that we're actually plotting this for 110 years and presenting it publicly. And this will be the same, the regulated flows with those 110 years. So this is the comparison. This is how it looks, the comparison of regulated of natural. What if we can find something in the middle that it is still function, but it is not perfectly natural? Well, these are the functional flows, so flows that are that provide benefits to different key bioindicators that preserves the monsoon flows, the snowmelt flows, and the dry season flows. And for this, we develop a calculator where we can do this. This is how these red, green, and blue lines, this is how it looks, these hydrographs, and this will be for different types of water years, dry years, moderate years, and wet years. Sorry, I'm looking at everything. These are the breaking points. With Laura, we were able to identify the breaking points. We were able to actually identify when, so we were able to characterize the variability of the natural flow regime, which is this blue area and this blue line. And we were also able to identify when the variability of the regulated flow went out of bounds. We were able also to estimate in these given years what actually make it happen. What was the cost to make it happen? In the Rio Conchos, it was the construction of Francisco y Madero. In the Pecos River, it was actually the Pecos River Compact. In the San Juan, it had some alteration. It was about to go out because of a drought, came back, and now it is really out of bounds. So we were able to identify the places where actually the flow regime changed. This is resilient theory. This is a river in this area that has been perturbed, but still is between those natural bounds. And this is the place when you have perturbated so much that actually it went to a different regime. It changed drastically. This is for San Marcial, El Paso, and you can see that our resilient window is very small. In Anzaldúa, it has been out forever. So this is a good preview. This is how it looks like. So this is the flow in Amistad, the resilient flow regime compared to the natural, how it would look like. And if we have this, and we have the resilient, and if we have the regulated flow, how much do we need to bump it up to make it into this flow? Is it possible? Now, here is the point. Like, well, Sam, this might be impossible. You will not be able to get this much water. We need to have a quantity to start shooting for. It might be imperfect. It might be actually quite large. In some places, actually, it's not. In some places, we actually have the water. We just need to move it in time. What if we don't need a lot of water? We just need to move most of it in time, and then there is a gap that we need to get for the environment. These are the discussions that I really want to have. These are the resilient flows. This is how they are actually looking like. These are prescribed environmental flows, that how they will be natural and how they will be resilient. Of course, here the scale is different, but we are estimating it. And this is what I was telling you, that sometimes decided also once again to break. This is where we're gonna have all the discussions in here. So definitely the computer is really is not helping out here, but there we go. So I think with this, the last part that I have is just showing you pictures of all the different people that I work. The presentation is working together, right? This could not have been possible without working together. I think also find that the value of these collaborations, that they are really important. Some of them, when I'm looking ahead, what I'm looking ahead is, number one, is this having information of environmental flows, how much water is needed, that we may need not a lot of water, it may need just to move water in time, and to provide a science that can be applicable for decision making. That's what I'm really looking forward on that front. And we know that we are in 3D cycle 36. And basically we know that it is not looking good at all. We know that that is a ticking bomb. We are like 2.5 years, almost 3 years. And to be sincere, I think that we're not going to make it. I think that there will not be enough water to deliver to the US. So most likely we may still be in a water debt. Mexico will be on a water debt. So those are kind of what I'm seeing things in the future. Working with many of you, I'm still looking forward. The permanent forum in terms of communications, it has been a good way to actually bring the community together. Perhaps many of you have heard this, but as I was kind of thinking of how to close it, this is speaking of the Rio Grande, of the Rio Bravo. This is one of those things that I wrote. It is actually pretty cheesy. Many of you have heard it, but this is something that I still am aiming for, right? So this is actually inspired by Martin Luther King, and basically it goes like this. So I have a dream that we continue having a socially diverse and culturally rich basin that is hydrologically connected and environmentally healthy. I have a dream that we reconnect the society with water. I have a dream that we take care of Mother Nature as good as nature takes care of us. I have a dream that all of us speak the same language, the river language, that has been talking to us from centuries. I have a dream that we think of water as water, a radical idea, regardless if it is surface water, groundwater, recycled water, desalinated water. I have a dream that we understand every portion of the basin, but do not regionalize it. The upper Rio Grande, the lower Rio Grande, the Rio Conchos, the Pecos River, El Bajo Rio Bravo. I have a dream that we just call this place that we love so much, El Rio Bravo, the Rio Grande, El Rio Bravo, Rio Grande Basin. So with that, I will leave it for questions. I think we're good. I'm sorry for the hiccups in the presentation. It was a tiny bit heavy.
Thank you, Sam. That was just fantastic. I didn't know you did all that, and I know you. So this was just great. I mean, you could do the course just today. So I invite the audience to send your questions into the Q&A. I'm sure you have questions. I do have questions, but I don't want to monopolize the conversation. But if you don't, I will. Because I want to take advantage of your knowledge of both basins. You're an expert in both international basins, in the Rio Grande and the Rio Colorado. Not many people have that profile. So knowing that, and I guess my question would be, what would be the lessons learned from one side or the other that could be potentially applicable? I mean, what are we missing? Apart from the history, communication, and the history of collaboration, all that part, but the areas of opportunity that we are not exploring, or that we're just passing, we're just not looking at them closely or in more depth, that we don't take advantage from. So what are the lessons learned that we can apply on the Rio Grande? And if there is something that we could use on the Rio Grande that could be applicable to Colorado, I don't know about that, but you know better.
So lessons learned. I think something that I specifically for the environmental flows in the Colorado River. They decided not to, or what I saw is that it wasn't a management of egos, management of who is giving who is the spokesperson. When the environmental flows in the Colorado River passed, they basically decided to have a common front, and whoever was available, it will be represented everyone, and it will be taken as not as I am the one leading this. I am part of a bigger group, and I think that one it took us quite a lot of time. I think now we're on a better track for on the environmental organizations to say, hey, I mean, if it is Davis, if it is Texas A&M, if it is WWF, if it is Pronatura, if it is ABC, whoever, Audubon, it is the same voice. It's the same voice that people are trying to protect the environment. Let's just get together. Actually, we have a meeting every month with the NGOs. That has worked well. I think it's getting better. I think we are realizing that. What are some of the? So I think in general for me something that you have heard me, Rosario, is that we should always think always two basins at once. When dealing with a lot of these issues, we have environmental flows in the Colorado. Why we don't have it on the Rio Grande? We have a drought reduction in the water allocation because of drought in the Colorado. Why we don't have it on the Rio Grande, on the Rio Bravo? And a lot of those things is like, okay, yeah, I can do a concession. I can get in an agreement on one side, but let's work on the other. Because see, if I want environmental flows on the Colorado, I also want them on the Rio Grande. If I want a drought contingency plan and a reduction in water allocation on the Colorado, I also want it on the Rio Grande, on the Rio Bravo. I think those are the things that I have learned. I have also, so those are on the good side. On the negative side, mistakes that I have learned. Sometimes I really need, in my personally, not to tell people what to do. I think decision makers and the politicians, they get really upset when you do that. So don't do that. And time windows of opportunities. So for a very brief period in time, we have Felipe Calderon and Obama put in a resolution that they were interested in. They put the Big Bend as a place of binational interest. So it went all the way to the presidents, to Obama and Calderon, to actually say, like, this place, we really like it. And it was for 8 months or a year. We missed that opportunity. If we could have put environmental flows in front of them, and we may have been able to move it forward. Windows of opportunities, those are also important. I don't know, any other question that you're seeing there?
Hold on.
And for everyone, I'm just putting all the different studies that you're seeing there.
Yes, and this session is being recorded, so it should be available on the UCLA website and on the forum eventually as well. At least this part of the series, which covers the Rio Grande. Thank you, Sam, for putting all this information here.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just, this is an important amount of work. This is in more than a couple of white hair papers there, yeah.
So I have another question. And talking about the last part of your presentation, talking about the resilient flows. And I know you're already working on that. You might not be able to have those amounts of water, but are you considering population growth and expected demands on the system on your resilient your resilient scenarios or not?
This is perfect because basically we were not.
Okay.
But so let me actually. So this is extremely interesting because. So let's say what we want to know is how much water can be available, or what is the water that can be available. So and then within that human water availability, how can we start playing of, okay, we're going to have this many population, well, how much will that be in the future? We're going to have this agriculture, how we're going to be squeezing or dividing that water. To be sincere, I really want to have this presentation because first time that we're presenting this, I really need to know what are the holes in our research that are there. You know, this part of resilience is super interesting because those dates is what in other institutes they call it the points of no return, the thresholds. So where are we crossing that threshold where actually things cannot go back? In this case, we found them, right? We just call it break it points when the flow regime change abruptly. But these are in other ones called um, thresholds. So that's where we are there.
Okay. Mekonnen, do you have questions for Sam at this
thanks.
point?
Yeah, thanks, Rosario. Sam, excellent presentation. I learned a lot, and thank you so much for your hard work to put together such neatly all those papers. So you mentioned that in terms of challenges, so Mexico is unable to meet its obligation in terms of the amount of water to provide to the U.S. And on top of that, you are emphasizing the need for maintaining environmental flows, which would put additional pressure, and then of course including climate change impacts, increasing demand, etc. The solution, the challenges will only get more and more complex. So in terms of solutions, are there like low-hanging fruits?
Oh yeah, there are many.
Yeah. Okay.
That is the thing, that there are many. So I just mentioned it like briefly, but a dam problem and a dam solution. So we have a problem with all the reservoirs, but think of it as passing water from one bucket to the other. And for the environment, it can be just a matter of timing. So it might not be that we need to drastically reduce some of the water demand. In some places, yes, don't get me wrong. But in some places, the Big Bend is one of the lowest hanging fruits. It really is in the middle of West Texas, along the border, with no population. What you're seeing here behind me is just all of this beautiful river crossing. So that to me is a low-hanging fruit. And conjunctive use, surface water and groundwater, that is another one. I think those two more wicked problems that we're going to have, that is, I think, are not necessarily related with the scientifically with the science. It's more about the people, the stakeholders, the governance. Colorado, New Mexico, and Texas sharing the water, and Texas through in New Mexico and all that problem in the Mesilla Valley, that's something that it will be always a point of conflict. I mean, we have, I think we have gone to this high water intensive, yeah, very profitable, don't get me wrong, but high water intensive crops where we are using more water than what we have. And how do we know those symptoms? Mesilla Valley, the aquifer is overdraft. Bolson Hueco, the aquifer is overdraft. Meoqui Delicias, the aquifer is overdraft. Aquifer Mina in Monterrey, the aquifer is overdraft. The lower Rio Grande Valley, the Chicote, Evangeline aquifers, the aquifers are overdraft. So what that means is that we have agriculture that is used surface water because they can get enough, no groundwater. That of start scaling down, that will be a problem because basically we have now some of these high water intensive crops becomes so we have trees that now they need water that you cannot move them that easy. I think that will be a change. Now, in terms of climate change, don't get me wrong. Climate change is really important, but something that actually this is a reading from Rosario. Then later I thought like, oh, look at that, that's true. The system has been in a drought for 100 years. And it doesn't matter if it was really wet or really dry or extremely wet. It didn't make it out of a drought. The human uses are really driving this. So anyway, so that's where I am. And I'm seeing a couple of questions from Patricia and another one.
Yes, from Patricia Herrera, Samuel, should I do this in Spanish? I should, okay. Samuel, muchas felicidades, no solo por la gran exposición, sino por el sentimiento que transmites y tu amor por estos cuerpos de agua. ¿Qué posibilidades reales ves que se pueda realizar un manejo conjunto en este contexto asimétrico que caracteriza esta frontera tan particular?
Okay, so what are the possibilities to have a joint and integrated water management given the asymmetric context that is characteristic of the border? So I think it's possible. I think for the environment, we are showing it that it is possible. So we are working together as institutions, but also within our own fronts to work together to make sure that we can have environmental flows. In terms of other uses, so cities. That was minute 325. I forgot in which tree cycle we are, 36? Okay, so the previous one, 2015-2020, cycle 35. We didn't close it, right? But, well, we closed it barely, like quarter to the hour. There you go, some water from the reservoirs. But we're not going to have water for the cities. The US said like, okay, I'm receiving this water, I'm lending you back this so you can actually provide water for your cities. That management has been also done jointly. It is not that it's like super tight, but they can see each other what are the needs. And I think that's great. The biggie one is the agriculture. And that is very disjointed. And it is not only related between Mexico and the US. It is related within Mexico and within the US. Within Mexico, there is a very fragmented use of water between the Rio Conchos, the Rio Salado, and the Bajo Rio Grande. Everyone is wanting to do what they want. So the problem is not necessarily like, hey, what about our neighbors in the north? So I think that is a more severe problem. Hey, I can be an optimistic. I am an optimistic. I think so. we are going in actually next year, 20 years of the draft of the Reglamento de Agua. So we passed the quinceañera party. Now we're going to the 20th anniversary. I think it might be possible. I think some states every state have 5 votes, and we have 5 states. So if a state decided not to agree, and the other ones agree, we can move. I think unfortunately we need to go there. So we have also another anonymous comment.
Chihuahua, yeah, the Chihuahua state government's position of not releasing water from the reservoirs, I guess it refers to on the 2020, seems to affect the basin-wide management approach. Is that comparable to, say, Colorado keeping the Colorado River in their reservoirs?
Yes and no. So yes, because people downstream are not receiving as much water, but no, because it is not planned. In the Colorado River is basically Lake Mead is this height, you're going to receive this less water. Oh, it's going lower, you're going to receive even less. The amount that is received less is it can go up to 10%. So don't get me wrong, every drop of water counts, but it's reduction in 10%, 9% of the water allocation on the Colorado River. What Chihuahua's government is doing might be affected greatly than what is happening on the Colorado River, and it is unplanned. It really is, unfortunately, but it may look sometimes like an anarchy, like, okay, and I've been there, this is not a political statement. Water is of all Mexicans, it's not of the state of Chihuahua, read the Constitution. But yeah, those folks, and not all of them, some of them, they are very reactionary on water of the state of Chihuahua is for Chihuahuans. Anyways.
So do you see that scenario replicating in 2 years from now?
Yeah. And so the thing is that they know the trick. So the problem is that, so how can we stop people taking water out of the state? Well, we figure out that if we go to the reservoirs, we put a lot of people in front of them. So yes, I think unfortunately that, actually, and the following thing that I'm worried, and we have discussed this, we're always thinking in this kind of dual side. So farmers of Chihuahua, they decided not to let the water pass and keeping it there. Farmers of the Colorado River, that they see the water pass to go to the city of Mexicali, Tijuana, Tecate, Ensenada. And if they say, like, well, guess what? You're actually having a reduction in your water allocation. But by the way, you need just to let this water pass to your people down south, right? And they will say, like, if people in Chihuahua have done all of that and they get the water, what if we try to do the same? And that one I'm actually very worried. I mean, I just say that as a joke, but that is something that it just keeps me thinking, like, I hope that these guys don't do that. Because otherwise we're going to have Mexicali, Tijuana, all the, let's not exaggerate, but 50 to 60% of the population of Baja California at risk of not getting water. So yeah.
And the precedent and the legal precedent that you have there, right? That's the problem. This precedent that we're dealing with, and we're going to have a legal perspective, governance policies seminar series with water law lawyer from Texas A&M, Gabriel Eckstein, in the following seminar series, and we're gonna talk about that. What is the precedent here? I mean, where are we going with this anarchy? Like, well, we have less water, we have more needs, so let's see who's fast enough, right?
Well, we have rules in the game, but no one is following the rules.
Yeah.
Mhm.
or the rules don't apply anymore.
Yeah.
Either way. I don't have any more questions on my end. Mekanen, if you want to go ahead and if you have more questions
Thanks.
on your end.
Thanks, Rosario. One more question. If you could comment on the adoption rate of the scientific knowledge by the policymakers. To what extent are they open to ideas, solutions?
So they are very open, and again, I have to characterize that. People from TCQ, people from some of the people in Conagua, some of the people of the state, people in the state of Nuevo León on the San Juan Basin. Those folks, they really like models and they really like to see the strategies and this robust decision making. So these are people that are politicians that are very well versed on that one. Right now, the work that is doing Enrique Punes and the folks on Audubon in the above Elephant Butte on New Mexico, Colorado, where they are working, scientists are working directly with the Bureau to actually provide them strategies to how improve the environmental health and water supply. So, I mean, it is, they are well received. There are, as in every family, there are also some users that are using science against it. And I mean, to me, it's kind of like they are just borrowing the playbook of some people in the United States to use it in Mexico. Well, how certain are you that the flows in the next 20 years will be below average? And then, of course, anyone that is on the scientific community will say, like, yeah, I'm not certain, right? I mean, no one can be 100% certain. But that doesn't prevent us to be prepared. And some of those specific arguments, why do we have why do we have some of our analysis with data until 2010? Why cannot have data until 2020 or 2023? And we're like, because it takes a lot of time, my friends. Like, it really takes a lot of time to massage all this work. But it is just excuses. I do think that some of those are excuses. Yeah, I'm seeing policy being amenable for that.
Yeah. Thank you, Sam. I think Rosario, we don't have any additional questions from the audience. Let me seize this opportunity to thank Sam for your insightful presentation. Thank you so much. I would also like to bring up the permanent forum of binational waters. It is such an outstanding forum. You guys bring together NGOs, experts, scientists, etc. Yeah, you have newsletters, permanent forums, etc. Events. In fact, you have a forum coming up next Saturday. Rosario, do you like to say a few words about the forum and the events that you are organizing for people?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yes, we're starting the, I guess, academic year now, and the forum is pretty loaded. Next week, we're going to have our first coffee break of the season, and I'm going to try to look for that link to put it in the chat for all of you. If you want to join us, we're going to talk about desalination as the solution, ? We hear that word more often all over the border region, and it's time to talk about it. So we're going to meet next week, and we're going to have, as usual, our events or initiatives, open mics, interviews, course development, a lot of things that we have planned for the forum and for all of you interested in sharing your events, initiatives, ideas, models, data, whatever you think it will be useful for the community itself, not just for the scientific community. This is to integrate all the cooperation efforts along and across the border. So with that, I'll thank you as well, Mekonnen, for the invitation to be part of this joint effort with UCLA. And we're going to be here next week as well, next Wednesday, same time. You're going to get the corresponding invite, or you probably already did. We don't have a speaker yet, but let's call it a surprise. It should be a good one because, I mean, we started with a very high bar here from Sam. So we need to make sure we got the best of the best of the best in this seminar. So
Rosario,
thank you.
Rosario, Mekonnen, one thing. So this is again the permanent forum is yours. And as you can see, it is very inclusive. We were talking with Mekonnen about it. He's doing all this good work in these transboundary basins that we're working and have no problem. And like, hey, let's actually broadcast it until what point that we said like, hey, why don't we work together? And it's been delightful to work with Mekonnen. So anyways, what I'm trying to tell everyone is that, as you can see, if you have ideas, if you think of events that can be of these of the interest of this community, let us know. We're open, and really good working with you, Mekonnen.
Yeah. Sam, I just wanted to echo also what you said. You know, I'm you know, extremely impressed by, you know, how open and how eager you are to collaborate with scientists. Behind the scenes, you have been helping us with great list of speakers, not just for Rio Grande, but, you know, for Colorado and other basins. We have been discussing about, you know, global collaboration as well. So you are an example of scientists who are really open to cooperation, and I really value that. So thank you so much, Sam. Rosario did an excellent job today, leading the session, moderating, etc. So thank you so much. So I guess we'll see them next week with a surprise speaker.
A surprise speaker next week. Don't miss it.
Okay.
And I just put in the chat or next coffee break also from the forum if you're able to attend. Yeah,
wonderful. So let's give you a minute until you copy the link. Yeah. So please take a minute. So I think that's all for today. So thank you all. Thank everybody for joining us today, and see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.